When we work with the radial system, this first example, we sort of worked with the obvious, and we just placed the circle in the middle. And that's kind of silly. It's just boring, right? So another consideration for the intermediate phase is to start using the corners as a focal point. So instead of placing the radius here, we can place it here. And we can also play with the idea of different sizes for the radius. So instead of it being a really tight or narrow radius, maybe it's bigger. Maybe the center is off the edge of the page. So the center is on the page in this example, and this one, the center is off the page. The radius is really wide. Let's experiment with both of these using the structure of hierarchy and grouping that I created. So I'm going to put this here. I wish there was a faster way of doing this. This is pretty slow. Well, it's barely going to fit. There we go. All right, so here we have our first example with hierarchy in intermediate phase with a corner emphasis, but it's really tight. You'll notice that if we look at it from a compositional standpoint, I mean, it might be visually interesting, but in terms of scale and percentages, it looks really tight. One of the things that I could do is just use this as a structure, copy and paste it, and then basically just scale them up. So I can play with the scale. We slightly reposition it. And this will give me, remember, we can always delete these because it's implying a radius. This has more of a sense of place or purpose on the composition than this one. This one's a little bit too small. So just by scaling it up, it starts to feel a little bit more appropriate for our design. So I also mentioned that we could play with a much larger radius. So here's the much larger radius. I'll make it even bigger. Another thing that we can do is play with multiple radius. So maybe we have a radius that's here and a radius that's out here. They're sort of like in steps. Maybe we put 3 different steps. Let me make it smaller. I'm going to make this more logical. Since we're talking about systems and such. So I'm using my alignment tools to make sure that they are concentric, right? So let's do this again. Department. Radial system with different entry points, different radial dimensions. And let's get rid of our example. So this is what we end up with. Which one looks the most dynamic at this juncture? The last one. The more we embellish this system, the better it starts to look. Also, the more we play with the typographical variables of weight, size, and value, the clearer our structure also becomes.